That's great. Welcome. Well, welcome everybody. I will go ahead and let our speakers take the floor and explain what all the great things that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the chance of talking to the Perk community. I think this has been a great organization and an opportunity to find out what's happening in the community. Our Office of Work-Based Learning is very new. We just launched in January. Yeah, thank you. And it's been a really interesting journey so far. And what we'd like to do is just to take you kind of through our journey a little bit. Some of our why, John. Why do we need a new office at SCC? And kind of what that journey has been like for almost 6 months now, not quite 6 months. In February, we had a presentation to the Board of Governors. When my boss came into my office and said, you're presenting next month. This was in January. We'd just been in office for a few weeks. That was a little bit daunting, but it also was really good at really catalyzing us and helping us focus on our why and what's our purpose of being. And creating pathways is a big part of it. But one of the things we shared with the Board of Governors, this policy brief came out just like a week before we did the presentation to the Board of Governors, talking about in any particular month in Nebraska, there's between 50 to 80,000 positions open that cannot be filled. And the Chamber really described this as a crisis, and the need for upskilling, to be more agile, the pathways, all were part of that message, and again, part of the purpose of our being. Another reason is on a national level, there is this requirement that every adult have a credential that has clear and transparent learning outcomes. And the national goal is by 2025, 60% of all adults have this kind of a credential. And it's something that's going to be relevant to the workplace. And there's so many reasons, there's so many whys behind this why, including, better health outcomes, better GDP for the economy. There's so many reasons why this is an important goal. And Nebraska has a goal also of 70% by 2030. Our rate's only 55.8. So we have some work to do in this area. And there are also populations that we really need to be paying more attention to. One of the opportunity population is our immigrant community. We have 53,000 immigrant adults that don't have that kind of a credential. So there are really some opportunities for us in terms of upskilling and reskilling and creating more opportunities. That's a little bit of the why, and now the how. How did this office even come about? Well, it came about because of 2 grants that we were very fortunate to be a part of. One was the City of Lincoln grant, and this grant created some opportunities. It was initially really focused on people who were displaced or who really suffered the negative consequences of the COVID pandemic, which hit so many of us economically. But part of the application, our president, Dr. Illich, wrote the application, and a significant amount of that money went to our new STEM building that is being developed right now. But it also created a new strategic plan for our college where he said, our strategy is to create dedicated and specialized lab spaces for the purpose of upskilling and reskilling. In our history, our college has done a phenomenal job with traditional college students, the 18 to 22-year-olds, and they continue to be important. We just recognize there are a lot of other people that we can be serving in a greater capacity, helping them with the skills that they need to get the jobs that are in high demand. And the other grant, I'm going to turn to my colleague. This is Connie Russell, and she's our apprenticeship director.
Thanks, Marguerite. So this is my slide. It's about the apprenticeship program. So the Registered Apprenticeship Program is underneath the umbrella of the Office of Work-Based Learning. And this program came to be through a grant from the U.S. Department of Labor, Apprenticeship Building America, or ABA. Central Community College is actually the grantee that wrote and received the grant. They brought on board Northeast Community College. Both of those colleges had existing apprenticeship programs. They also brought on board Southeast Community College. We are developing our apprenticeship program. We did not have one in place, but we wanted to have, a lot of people have always wanted to have one. What, right, Marguerite?
Yes, I've been hearing about this for years, so I was really excited that we have this program now.
Very excited for this opportunity. So as we're developing this Office of Work-Based Learning, we're also developing our apprenticeship program. And the registered part means we are registered through the U.S. Department of Labor to have apprenticeships. So there's a structure, there's a set of standards. So our apprenticeships are in line with others being offered across the state and across the country. Now you'll see up there between our 3 colleges, oh, maybe I don't have that quote up there, but I will just tell it to you. Between our 3 colleges, Northeast, Central, and Southeast, we are covering the apprenticeship area in 59 of the 93 counties in Nebraska. So we're growing apprenticeships, we're building apprenticeship programs in our state. And what is on there is the earn and learn model you'll see at the bottom. And this is the basic apprenticeship model. It's tried and true and proven to be effective. It's where an apprentice is hired as a full-time employee by the employer. They are receiving a paycheck from day one, but they are paid to receive on-the-job training from an experienced, seasoned mentor chosen by that employer. Maybe it's someone who's about ready to retire and needs to share their wealth of knowledge they have accumulated over the years, but anyone seasoned and qualified to supervise this apprentice as they're mastering these new skills. Now, at the same time, the employer is also paying this apprentice to go to school. So that's what we call the related technical instruction. That is provided by SCC. So earn and learn. They are learning on the job. They're learning in the classroom. They're having aha moments. They might be sitting in a classroom saying, how is this ever going to apply to my job? Then they're alongside their mentor. Their mentor shows them something that they just learned in the classroom. Those are those aha moments. This is why they taught me this. I am going to be using it. So at the end of the apprenticeship, the apprentice will have an award from SCC, whether that be a certificate, a diploma, or a 2-year degree. They also get an industry-recognized credential from the U.S. Department of Labor, and that stays with them for the rest of their lives, just like their award from SCC does. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're doing right now. We are registered to provide apprenticeships in welding and in professional truck driving, and soon to be electromechanical technician. We are growing and building as our employers are coming to us.
What's an
Electromechanical? Absolutely. Another term people are saying is mechatronics. So if you ever hear those two, because that threw me, it's the same. So electromechanical is working on and I'm probably not going to do this justice. I need our Dean Caleb Herwick here to explain it, but working on the big industrial machines that are making things. So instead of making things, you're working on the huge pieces of equipment, all the electronics involved in that, so we can have manufacturing, so we can have production. They're keeping the plant going.
And so it's like for Kawasaki that they're coming in and repairing the huge machines.
Absolutely.
Or even helping program it, because
Yes.
employers are becoming more and more automated. They have to be, because we can't get enough people to work. And the technology is becoming more complex, so we need some specialized skills to be able to troubleshoot, program, and ensure that they're getting the kind of productivity that they're needing in their business.
Rail cars, those are electromechanical turbine. It's an integration between the electronics of driving and the mechanicals.
That's right. And since you mentioned that, I'll just add a little bit. Upskilling is also an important part of what we do. Connie and I met with an employer that said, we've got these people, that are really skilled on the mechanical side, but as they're getting more of the PLCs, some of these electrical type components, they need help covering those gaps so that their employees can be upskilled to be able to troubleshoot and manage this equipment. So I appreciate that addition.
Absolutely. And apprenticeship is for everyone. It is for current employees who are upskilling or reskilling. It can be someone new who just graduated from a program or is changing programs, is in the middle of a program at Milford. It can be for high school students. We're going to be looking into pre-apprenticeships to get them started learning skills that will let them go right into an apprenticeship after they graduate high school. So really, an apprenticeship can be for anyone. And I do have some flyers. I have some business cards for myself. And my partner in crime over there, Lynette Mays, is our apprenticeship coordinator. I am so pleased to have her on board. She comes to us from the Center of People in Need and has extensive experience in creating new programs and working with the community. So very glad to have her on board. And while I'm at it, I'm very glad to have Saba, our career coach in the Office of Work-Based Learning. Our offices are all three near each other, so we are always available for questions.
And Saba, what day is this of you in your new position? Yes. One week. So happy anniversary. We're thrilled you're a part of the department. And Lynette, you as well. Lynette, how long for you to be with us?
And they keep coming back.
And I would like to add too, so I think Marguerite, or you mentioned the STEM building that's being constructed. So a goal of SCC from this point forward, my understanding, any new building that is built will have a dedicated lab for this specific thing. So right now they're working on a new welding building. So then there will be a lab specifically available for people in this area to go and work.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's been a piece that's really been missing from our college. Again, with our focus on our traditional students being incredibly important, we also need to make sure we're addressing other needs of the community where we can. And that certainly is one. And we really appreciate Dr. Illich's vision in making that strategic change. And kind of just wanted to, this is one new pathway through apprenticeships, but you had a personal example of why having this type of a pathway is important. Would you mind sharing that? Your why?
Absolutely. So I've worked for the college, Southeast Community College, for 8 years. My most recent position was as an admissions counselor here on the Lincoln campus. And from the point I started the job, I would have people sitting next to me, and they would be adult learners, and they would say, I would like to learn a new trade. I would like to provide a better living for my family. I would like a more fulfilling career. However, I have a family now, so I need to work full time because I need to pay my bills and feed my children. I also need to find a way to pay for school, and I need to find time to go to school. So how do I do that? And so, I would work with them and we would piece together a plan, but I never felt fully equipped like I do now. Now that we have this apprenticeship program in place with this earn and learn model, that is the pathway for these individuals. So very excited to be a part of it.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that, Nisa. I find that to be really valuable because that's a great example of the type of learners that we want to be reaching, the type of path that we want to be adding. And this leads me to introducing Rod Rhodes. He's the Administrative Director for the Office of Work-Based Learning. And we need to be thinking about other pathways in addition to apprenticeships. And this is what Rod's role is.
Thanks, Marguerite. This office is badly needed, in my opinion, I think for all three of us. And so my side of the equation for the Office of Work-Based Learning is underserved populations, but different access points, different entry points. When you think about going to college, you think about that 18, 19-year-old, and they have to fit into the college schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. That's when I go to school. I fit the college's schedule. That leaves out a whole nother population of folks who need training, retraining, Maybe they never finished college. Maybe they never went to college. They need the training to fit their schedule because they are adults. They are busy. So we want to be flexible. We want to be on time. And these strategies you see are the things that I'll be working on. One of them is called Prior Learning Assessment, PLA, where if I was in the military, or if I was trained at State Farm, or I had previous experience at Kawasaki, how do we translate that into college credit? How do we shorten the time that they have to spend with us, how many credits they earn or how much they have to spend? How do we award them credit for their prior learning? Because learning happens in many cases outside of a classroom, on the job, in life, in the military, or wherever. So prior learning assessment, we think, will help a number of people reach their goals quicker than going through a traditional 1 or 2 year program or even longer. Other things that we are exploring would be what we call micro-credentials, because many people just need a certain certification to get into the workforce. A Google certificate, for example, would be one. A Microsoft certificate would be another. Welding certifications or so on. Get them in that credential area where they get started, and then they work, they make that better living, they upgrade their quality of life perhaps, but then they can maybe go back to school and stack that with another certification. We like to call it laddering, because we really don't want anything we do to be a dead end. It should lead right away to further training, a job, or a better job. That's very important to us. So all of those strategies we are looking at, micro pathways, micro certifications, industry certifications, and SCC has never really played in this arena before, but if we don't, companies do it. Industry right now is doing their own training. They are hiring people off the street and doing training. So we want to be able to be a bridge between our credit programs, our non-credit programs, to underserved populations. And so stackable credentials is important, micro pathways, and the next slide, I think, really sums it up. The first lane on the higher ed track is for traditional students. We want to add more lanes, more access. Apprenticeships is a great option. Micro certificates are an option. Certifications are an option. Stacking and laddering, because there aren't as many high school students as there were. We have learned from some of our partners that that population is stagnant. It's not growing. In fact, it's going down in many cases. So who is out there? The adults, the underserved population. One of our biggest target populations, and we looked at that already, are the immigrants and the refugees. Great workforce that we can tap into and help them get to where they want to go. Some of what the office is working on and what I will be working on, every program of study at the college has an advisory committee called a workforce leadership team. Every single program. The job of the WLT is that we listen to industry input. What are the trends in your industry so that our programs can be teaching the latest? But what are your employment needs? What skills do you need? WLTs is a rich source of information that they meet once or twice a year, usually twice, and we listen to those industry folks talk about their challenges and what they're going through. DACM is a way for us to make sure our curriculum is up to date. It stands for developing a curriculum. We bring in the technicians, and what are you doing on the job? Give that information to the programs. Are we teaching those things, and at what level in our programs? We don't want to teach things we don't need to teach anymore. So those are two parts of my job, to be sure that we are staying up to date with industry, both at a big level and then with the skills level for the programs to be teaching. We have a lot of partnerships, Center for People in Need, Luther Family Services, Lincoln Literacy, American Job Center, all kinds of initiatives, and we want to coordinate and partner together to make a difference across the city and across our 15-county service region. And that quote, we really do like the new normal isn't the 18 to 20-year-old. It's the adults. If you've ever gone back to school for more training yourself, you know how you have to fit that into your schedule. We want to be able to provide those access points with the Office of Work-Based Learning.
We just heard a statistic, too, just to build on that, Rod, from Dr. Jim Sutphin, who's working with the Nebraska Chamber as an educational liaison. And he said, looking at the current K through 12 population, the largest group is the graduating seniors, which means every succeeding class is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we have people retiring at the same time. So again, that just heightens the urgency of how do we pay attention to others that we can be helping educate for jobs that are in demand that would pay them a good standard of living. Why that's also important. Well, as Amy mentioned, we had a presentation to the continuing education team. This is at our 90-day mark. So what we described as our 90 days was sort of like this. We're building the plane while it's flying, and we're hoping we don't crash it. It felt like that some days because, I mean, we had to figure out so many different things. Found out, well, just start an apprenticeship. That's easy, right?
Seems like it should be.
Yes, and we've really been very fortunate that we have 2 community colleges that had already started apprenticeships, and they warned us, it's going to be a slow start, but you guys are going to be amazing. You guys are going to really take off. They were right. The start is slow. There's so many hurdles that need to be addressed before you can even launch being able to offer them as a college. And Rod, doing prior learning assessment, also easy.
PLA, sure. No biggie.
I said, we had a conversation last week that it's like there are so many layers to the onions of everything that we're doing. So we really needed to kind of strategize and come up at, John, you talked about mission and values. We needed to create our own mission. And creating pathways for all is what we felt was incredibly important to the work that we're going to be doing. And meeting learners where they are. And when I think about this niche of our mission, I think about Lynette Mays, and I think of Saba Alabaidi, who are going to be working with our apprentices, who are going to be specializing in providing advising to non-traditional students. Again, our college does a great job with traditional students, but for non-traditional students who need to juggle all of the challenges with them going back to school and still having a family or whatever their circumstances might be, Saba's in training right now to understand not only what SCC's resources are, and there are many, but what our community resources are. So she can provide those important connections to whomever she serves. And then we also identified our values. That was an important part of what we did. And again, there are so many opportunities for us to be looking at. We had to really focus on 90-day goals, just so we're focused and we're moving forward, and then we build on the next 90. I'm getting some nods from John, so I'm thinking that we're maybe doing some of the right things here. That's good. But that's been helpful to us as we're moving forward. And really, we're in the building phase still. We are also managing 2 large grants, and we're looking for additional grant funding. So there are a lot of activities that we're involved in.
How long how long are those grants for?
Okay, the City of Lincoln grant is through 2024.
Okay.
The ABA apprenticeship is through 2026.
June of 2026.
June. Okay, that's a fiscal year one. So,
Amy, what will be able to help with some of the grants? Because he works with giving connecting grants, Nebraska grants to programs.
Part of the USD.
You think?
I think he's probably in a different niche, Margaret, but I know that we work with we have a grant department here, and so they are always looking at USDA grants, federal grants. In fact, I just met with Audrey yesterday to talk about there's lots of grants out there for entrepreneurial development, but then when you get into the nitty gritty of it, it doesn't always fit what
you can write, which I'm sure that you.
So that you start going, right, my tongue as long as I can. But I went through what you were going through 40 years ago in vocational/community education in the Twin Cities, but I'll come back to that. But one of the areas you should look for grants is all of the trade organizations that you're going to want to start career paths for. They either have grants or fellowship dollars available for you to pull from, and they're more than willing to do that if they can be able to come back at that point. So, and I'd be happy to help you out.
Thank you. I love this audience helping us out already. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Sandhills, I know that they're a big supporter, SCC. I think they get grants too, though.
Well, and the STEM building that we talked is the Sandhills Global Technology Center. So they have absolutely played a vital and important role. That building will be very important to the types of career paths that we've been talking about.
And you know who Mike Rowe is, right?
Yeah.
So I found out the other day I was listening to a webinar with him, and he gives out grants along this line too, because he gives out grants for like apprenticeship for welders.
Mm-hmm.
So he might check his side.
That's I'm calling about the trade side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I know he's got them, so I don't know whether you qualify or not. But since it's welders,
Yeah, I believe our Caleb Herwick, who's the dean of one of our manufacturing-related programs, did make an application for that. So I appreciate that. So we always welcome knowledge about, there are so many things out there that we don't necessarily capture. So I really appreciate the generosity of this group in sharing that information. So thank you. I also wanted to share just more recent news, like is our why still important? And it really is. Again, this is in the news from research that are talking about how, this is from Forbes, how important this pathway is. And Harvard Business School's research, also really acknowledged the importance, as Connie had mentioned, that enhanced learning when you're able to go and apply what you've learned, that just enriches the learning. It accelerates the learning. So many opportunities that way. And this one from the Nebraska Examiner had some really important data. First of all, we're number one in our state per capita for the shares of refugees resettled over the past decade compared to our overall population. We're number one. And as this article was mentioning, our immigrants and refugees are seen as a potential economic powerhouse and a workforce supply source that is not fully tapped. There is another area where Nebraska's number one here that's not a good number one. And this is when you're looking at our labor participation rate and our earnings share, that this population has a disproportionately large number of people earning very low income. So that really is something that we need to improve, and we need to be able to provide those pathways to opportunities for the individuals so that they can maximize the talents that they've brought from other countries here, and that we can help them reach their goals, which will help our community reach its goals. So our opportunities are vast. We are already starting to get some traction on some important things. Rod, you met recently with Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. They have a number one goal of having meaningful pathways. Our City of Lincoln Workforce Administrator, Dylan Wren, is also vitally invested in that. So you're collaborating with them to make sure our college is a part of that important initiative for our city and for our community. Connie, I'm just thinking, we recently met with a company that was talking about all of the automation that they're doing, and they're looking at the potential expansion opportunities 6 times of what their current already vast resources are, and they're struggling right now to get help. So they're like, what are we going to do? So an apprenticeship solution, upskilling, mechatronics type of upskilling for the people that have the mechanical skills, but maybe not the electrical, as they're becoming more and more automated. These are things that we're working with that company And you've been speaking with a number of other organizations who see that apprenticeships could be a vital part of their talent pipeline strategy. And Connie or Rod, did you have anything that you wanted to add, just again, as you're reflecting on the last 6 months? And do we have the wheels on the plane yet, do you think? Or
I think we know our why.
yeah, that's a very good point.
We keep finding more parts that need to go into the plane.
I feel like we're about ready to take off.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get to the point where we're soaring.
Yes. The building phase, for especially if you're of the cheaper background, and I think everyone on this team is that, we want to do it now. And that's why, for me anyway, it's been helpful to have the 90-day goals so I don't get overly excited about, but I want to do this too because that's important, and it is important, but let's do this first toward that direction. And Connie and Rod are part of the leadership team for this division, and we'll be meeting here shortly to talk about our second set of 90 days. What have been our wins? What is our strategy? What are our goals as we're looking to the next 90 days? We also have, this has been really fun. We started out with a 10-year plan and a 5-year plan, and that was like crazy. And someone on our team, I'm not going to mention who, was really shooting very, very high and has been coming down a little bit by bit. Well, maybe this is a more realistic number, but if you want to do great things, you need to shoot big and start big. And that's what we're really attempting to do. And we realize it takes a community, it takes partnership within our college, because we are not delivering the training ourselves. This is through our continuing education division. This is through our credit programs, who've been wonderfully collaborative with us, just as Amy has been with the Entrepreneurship Center and Focus Suites. Anything else to add?
I have a couple questions. So I'm going to kind of switch gears because we always ask our speakers this question. So tell us about your favorite local restaurant or your local store. So we promote entrepreneurs, we promote local business. So what are some of your favorite local businesses?
Gosh, for anything food related, Vincenzo's and Venue are just at the top of my mind, but there are so many others, but I love both of those.
Ditto. And is Le Cartier a local, I believe? Yeah.
Here, I think they also are in
Okay. Okay. And they're right near this building, and that's another go-to for me as well.
Oh, can I add one more? Wham Bam Meal in a Pan. Have you heard of that? Oh my gosh, that's the best.
No.
I forgot about that shit.
I have never heard of that.
SCC, right?
That's an SCC grant. The best thing ever. There was a colleague that had suffered a really terrible loss to their family. I wanted to bring food, and it was just a crazy week. And my sister told me about it. It's like, well, they have these wonderful menus, I think from Monday through Thursday. You can get them in increments of 2 to 6 or whatever you need. And then you go pick it up. It's all hot and ready to go and fabulous. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Now, where is it and what is their cuisine?
They have their menu changes. Can I send you the link? Would that be okay?
Yep, we can put it out. Yep, we can send it out.
Give them a little promotion, but yeah, they do a great job.
Where are they located? Oh, so it's over there at 33rd and B. Yeah. Okay. That's Aaron. Yeah.
You guys know everybody.
Oh, doesn't he?
And Ron, how about you?
Just recently, some friends and I gathered at, we call it book club, but it's really not. Our book club met at Layton's Pub down on about 46th and Layton, kind of a newer area by Wesleyan. And it was just, I'd been there once with my family, and one guy had been there before, but very warm and inviting, and great food, and very cold pop, and it was just really nice. Layton's Pub, brown pop with a little head on it.
Since you mentioned that, I'm also a big fan of our local wineries and tasting rooms and microbreweries. They bring in so much tourism, and they are all such great hosts and hostesses and just so welcoming. Capitol View Winery, just outside Lincoln, is locally owned. Great, just as like its name says, great view of the Capitol. And Les and Trish are such great hosts, and he is a former boxing champion. So you can. It is. It is. So highly recommend gaining Capitol Views.
And then the other question I had for you, Rod, I think on the list or the slide that you had talked about competency-based learning.
Right.
I find that very interesting because when I got my master's, that's how that was through, it was all competency-based. And so it was a brand new experience for me as an adult learner to switch gears, and I also have Achiever. And so then for me, that was a struggle because am I really doing my best? Or so is that also part of what you're looking into for this?
Long-term,
Okay.
competency-based education, CBE, is a skills-based approach to education, where it's not so much that the instructor delivers all the content, but in any program, let's say welding, there are certain skills that if you can demonstrate mastery, you move on at your own pace. And so maybe they bring in some of that industry experience. Some things they'll be able to click through right away because they can demonstrate it. Other things may take a little bit longer. Great. It's not just self-paced, but it is all about mastery. Whereas think about, let's say you took English 1010 Comp 1 and you got a B. What does that mean? Exactly. But if I have this class where I can show these are all the skills, every single one that I mastered at the level that the instructor determines is mastery, that's a lot different than a B in Comp 1. So competency-based education is another way for an adult to maybe progress faster because they can, in a sense, test out of certain things. They can show that mastery. It's such a radical shift for education that it's a long-term thing for us. Was it Capella?
It was, yeah. And it worked perfect for me because the way Capella works is it's very transactional, give you a certain amount of time,
Right.
and you can take as many courses as you want to
Correct.
during that time. Boy, you can churn them out if you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
A pacing guide is very important because otherwise people will put things off to the end, but that's not a good move either.
No, and of course they ask you that like in the beginning to try to assess if you are fit for that program.
Right.
Like, can you set goals? Can you set deadlines for yourself? So anyway, I digress.
That's perfect. It's flexible and tailored to your schedule, and when you can devote more time, you devote more time. When you don't, you don't.
That's really a direction a lot of other things are going. There's competency-based, there's an encouragement for people to do competency-based hiring and job postings, but that takes a while for employers to kind of get the handle of that. So, yeah, the skills-based hiring, I think that's important. That's also part of your apprenticeships, too, is our competencies that need to be achieved at different pathways.
Absolutely.
But my background's in educational architecture. In November of 71, I joined the Hennepin Technical Centers, which are now Hennepin Technical Colleges in the Twin Cities. And we were...
Oh, my goodness.
Well, there's a choice. And when we're not so everybody else was in. But every program had advisory committee, and every advisory committee helped develop the competence for that program on mechanic, environmental technology, architectural design, mechanical design, electromechanical from a construction standpoint. Every program, the advisory committee helps develop their competencies. And to your point, you don't get a B or a C, you either to prove the competency correctly. And the original goal was if they wanted to move through it in less than a year, this is post-Vietnam. We're going through now what the 70s went through after Vietnam, when all of a sudden we were flooded with a lot of vets and a lot of people coming back, and they were adults then, and they needed skill set education. Yeah, and they didn't have the time, and the GI Bills applied to that. I don't know if you're looking at that now for what you're doing. And at the same time, as part of the University of Minnesota, they created Metropolitan State University. When I taught, I did not have a college degree, and I had skill sets. I worked with 3 or 4 major architectural firms, was not a registered architect. Most of our instructors were competency-based leaders. And out of all of that, each program developed, and Metropolitan State University created a competency-based 4-year college program. You had an associate somewhere, you could go skill sets on something. I ended up with a BA in vocational administration with a minor in marketing because I was in chairman of the graphics programs. And I'm saying this not because of my experience, but one of the things that has to happen, you have to go back to the high school level and, with all due respect, convince counselors that you don't drive everybody in college. You've reached these kids where they're at right now because all they see is dollar signs when we talk to them about college. And they're afraid, and they don't. I've been reading books by Tim Elmore, and a lot of ads. They're afraid, they're fearful, they don't, they're not confident, they don't dream anymore. They have to be reached out where they're at in these high school kids and saying, you do have skill sets, and we're really helping you more develop those skill. And that's what the counselors need to be telling us. I'm sorry, but that's it. Everything's for all these years been too much 4-year college driven. And as we went to the community college system, we lost them. We lost them of that more academic, less technical skills tapped into that. I'm not saying we don't need that. A certain percentage might need that, need to go on to their 4-year degree.
Well, Don, and
we really need to reach these kids where they're at.
I agree. I agree. Just
this video about getting come back.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you're in one of the suites here? Or are you just okay? That's right.
No, John is a regular. I had known John for I don't know how many years. I don't know if I want to say how long I've known John. So John he worked for Leadership Resources, and he was my coach while I was at Lincoln Lutheran. So I've known John for a long time, and he's been involved.
I'd say he'd be a good coach. But I share your passion with that. I agree. The one size fits all does not work for anyone. And we're fortunate the Nebraska Chamber hired Dr. Jim Sutphen, who's a retired superintendent from Millard. Is that right? And he shares that passion too. He's the educational liaison, so he's really working with the chamber and education to look at strategies that will be moving us more in that direction of we're not leaving people out or doing the one size fits all. Yes.
That's important because I don't think it's just ingrained in the high school kids and they're scared. I have a friend, for instance, who's been working in the restaurant industry for 25 years, and she'd really like to do something else. And no matter how hard I try to convince her to go back to school, she just has it in her head. It's too expensive. Even if it's a community college, I don't have the time. I have weird hours. How am I going to make that work? And so, as you're saying, retraining the way people think about education is really important so that they know that they can even apply for and take advantage of the opportunities that you're creating.
Exactly. And that's why the role of Saba is really important. You know, we're not expecting her to know everything right now. But she's a very smart and fast learner, and she will. And so this would be a person you could refer your friend to, because we want to open more adults or more doors for adults just like that. And really, that City of Lincoln grant was designed for your friend because that grant recognized that this COVID really had some people rethinking their careers. And for some of us, and when we have family obligations and other things, or we just don't think it's possible, you know, we create barriers. But there are so many community resources and even funding that can be provided. And that's what Saba's learning all about, so that she can help people like your friend know what's possible.
So with regards to that, like what Christy had talked about, some reservations that people have about going back to school. So let's say you have an adult learner, let's say you have Christy's friend. Are there also financial aid resources available to them to be able to help curb the cost of education?
Yes, absolutely. Will it fit everybody? Not necessarily, but we do have some funds that are part of this grant that we can use for student supports.
Okay.
That's for this grant, but there are also other funds in our community through American Job Center and what's called WIOA. There's funding, state funding for workforce, that could certainly be applied to certain people. For displaced workers, there's funds for that. And so, yeah, there are so many, and we have gap tuition assistance through our college. So this provides opportunity to have your tuition and supplies. It's income based, but there's quite a latitude with that. These are all of the types of opportunities and resources that Saba will have in her arsenal, so she can help people understand what's possible.
What's real key is a hat point that getting that information is available. And I know she's working on that, but getting that information availability out into the community, even into the high schools, so those options are there, because when they don't know it, they don't understand. There are factors. So,
John, you're absolutely right. And one of the things we're working on a lease agreement now with the American Job Center, so that we can have some space where Saba and so we can be more accessible to some of the people they serve. We're also talking with Center for People in Need. They're under some construction right now. So that'll be another place where we're going to look at and see, is this a place where it would make sense for us to have some office hours so we can be accessible to those individuals? There's somebody in the back that has a question.
One is from Roken Sego all the way as far as what costs would be at this moment, kind of what you're thinking as far as there's a need or for pathway in terms of CE or anything like that for businesses to make it directly. I get asked all the time if we have any sort of commissioning regime, especially right now with things being so tight for recruitment.
That's a great point.
I'm right with it, and everybody's in that boat, so everybody will pay for people to get trained if it's.
So if you're looking at resources for businesses that are wanting to upskill, through the Department of Labor, there's a Nebraska Worker Training Grant that has funds, quarterly grant.
I mean, we just pay for the tuition, $2 million grand, and just to make sure that those employees stay with it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We need to have you connected to our continuing education workforce solutions.
So some of those are top two regularly. That's a big question. And when you're just talking, but do you have a rough number? What?
It's really truly depends on the class. What we can do is get you, maybe what I'll do is email you the link to our continuing education workforce book. That will give you an idea of what's offered currently as a public enrollment class. They also do customized training. So if an employer has a group of people that needs a specific software skills, whatever that might be, or they're wanting leadership training, they can arrange to have something brought to their location.
Than to realize it's not necessarily grants, and it's the process people will just pay for it to get employees and whatnot. And two, I hear all the training and stuff, and I know we briefly talked about it, but the whole communication to like the business community, I know some of their businesses are coming and not paying, but I'm thinking more like a pool. It's a hybrid is terrible. This has been like all your people here going to like some sort of pool and research school. Yeah, to try and connect with what employer and what people for jobs and whatnot. I was going all the way out to like Indeed, and there was like
I'll speak real quick.
And then moving to say here, this is what I need. What do you have from a person that
Kind of what Marguerite mentioned a little bit ago, the partnership with
With the partnership.
LPED.
Yeah, LPED.
LPED. I never remember the acronym. They're going to put together a resource of what jobs are out there, what is needed, and who provides the training, and which employers are doing the hiring. And so we'd like to that's one of our big goals, is to make a resource available to potential workers, to businesses, that can be kind of not a one-stop, but a common tool. That we just met yesterday with the Department of Labor to develop all of those kinds of resources and start with certain occupations that are most in need and expand and go across not just Lincoln, but Southeast Nebraska, even statewide, as a resource, I think, to address exactly what you're kind of referring to.
And that's another one of those onions. It's a big project, but it's an important project. You know, when we've met with some of our community partners, like Lutheran Family Services, for example, they're wanting to know, as they're advising people who are new Americans coming in, what's the short-term path? And then what's the next? They want to understand that so that they can provide that information to the people that they're serving. And there just isn't a whole lot of real good information out there. So this is really, really important work.
It seems like it's especially not for people that aren't used to how our system works. And the idea of my actual apply where it's I need how machines.
And one of our big goals for the first year is a marketing campaign, a marketing strategy. How do we reach out to your friend? How do we reach out to adults and even employers, what services or options we have? And so I think that's a big one.
That is a big one. And then before we can do all that marketing, some things need to be built, right?
Have to have something to offer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And in some places we're ready, and others it's going to take a bit. So this is going to be a journey, but it's a valuable journey. I'm so glad that Dr. Illich and my immediate boss, Dr. Michaelis, who's the chief academic officer for a college, that was their vision to say, we need this office that's looking at these opportunities, and we're really grateful that we have the privilege of being able to do this.
Well, I'm glad that you're all in that, and that you're offering it to our community as a whole. Because as you can tell, there is, just from this small sampling, there is a need for that. Does anybody have any other questions for either Marguerite or Connie or Rod?
The last comment. Oh, that's good. I'm sorry. As you're doing this, it's competency based, and as a kid, and as the adult background people are going to go, are there opportunities for mentorship goals?
Connie?
To me, is a critical piece of achieving those goals and helping them identify.
Yeah, definitely within the apprenticeship program, that's part of the model, is for that on-the-job training to have a dedicated mentor. And SCC is providing mentor training so that mentor understands the importance of their role and communication. And Lynette's working on a personality test, for lack of a better word, that we can use so the mentor and the apprentice understand and know how to communicate with each other.
That should be broken out of jealous.
Yeah. So we're looking at that as well, communication skills and just, so awesome. So yeah, definitely the mentor piece of it is a very important part of the model. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's building leadership within the company, I feel like, too, allowing those employees to step up as mentors. So it's a win-win.
This has been a fabulous group. I really appreciate the feedback from all of you. If you think of anything else later on, or you have any recommendations for us that come to mind, please send those to Amy, and she'll get those to us. That's valuable to us as we're building this plane. It's looking really shiny right now. We still have work to do, but we really appreciate your support. We know it.
I started in November for the buildings that worked at. Taught in a warehouse. I had to recruit my own students. I had to write my own curriculum with my advisory committee and be ready to have a class on January 3rd.
Oh my gosh.
The basic umbrella in place, but it was day and night, 24 hours a day, and it's probably some of the most fun time of my life.
I really appreciate the people that are on this team also, because for some people to not know exactly what they're going to do or how it's going to evolve would be so daunting. And they're all embracing this and are all excited about it. And and are making things happen. So we're really fortunate.
John, I wrote it down. It's in writing. Your plane will fly. And I got your name right here. It's in writing. Yeah. So we're
John said.
Did you put a date on it?
yes, I did. 1623. Yeah.
God's a bit of it. Believe it,
But it's true.
we got to do with it.
Yeah.
Was it perfect that first year? Dummy. Were we building in? I was literally writing the third and fourth part of the first year architectural design curriculum.
Yes. You were building that plane in flight.
Oh, now, some of my former students I still remember, stay in touch with. They're old.
I appreciate your words of encouragement. That means a lot because there are a few days where it feels really overwhelming. And what am I doing? So I'm going to remember that for those days.
Yeah, hold John to those.
Yeah.
I want to thank all of you for coming today. I really appreciate sharing the information. This is one way to get the word out, right?
Yeah.
Of what we're doing. I told you earlier, but all of you have
Thank you.
got coffee cup. Please take that before you leave. So next week, I want to let all of you know that we will not have Perk Up. We instead are inviting all of you to go to the Course restaurant at our main campus. So if you're not aware of the Course, it is a student-run restaurant that serves absolutely amazing food. So we will plan on meeting there at 11. And then we'll have lunch. And if you can let us know if you want to go to that so that we can make sure that we have enough seats for everyone.
How many of you been to the course before? How many of you been to the student banquets? Oh, of course he has.
A good friend of mine, Aaron Rood's daughter, Jordan Rood, just graduated from the chef program and just came back to Harris.
Oh yeah.
She Harris.
Wonderful.
The night when they had the graduate program thing, we were invited with Aaron and his wife to participate in this with daughters.
Nice.
My husband gets mad when I start telling people about this because it's getting harder and harder to get those seats when they open up because they're so popular, but it's a true treat. Encourage you to look at that.
Yeah, and what those are is that it's really at the capstone for the culinary student that they plan the whole meal and present it, and it is absolutely amazing. But there aren't very many seats available, so that is completely different than what we're just going to have lunch. So we'd love to have you come. Let us know if you would like to, and if we could give a round of applause to everybody Thank you very much.
Thanks. Can we come back later on down? This is so much fun. We won't expect a coffee mug though.